Hi. Well, it's another beautiful day as always. And today I want to talk about ownership and conditions. So, first of all, everything in the universe, okay, and everything in you is built on something, okay? And that something isn't set, okay? It's not in stone, okay? That's just the way it is. I know it's hard to think of it like that, but that is how it is. It's constantly changing, okay? And in this constant change, all the conditions that you think make you who you are changing too. And as the conditions fall away and new ones come up, those conditions change you. Okay, that's how it is. Now, what that means is that you are sitting on a conditional universe, in a conditional universe, okay? And everything that you are is built on those conditions, okay? And everything that you own is built on top of that. And nothing can stand by itself, okay? As much as we do as human beings stand by ourselves, nothing else can stand by itself because everything else is built on these conditions, okay? And these conditions change. And when they do, things fall. Like your opinions, your feelings, what you thought about something, it falls away. Okay? And this falling away is change. Okay? Let's say you're a forest and you're built on the condition of having solid ground. Okay? And you're in the ground, you're part of the ground. Everything is one thing. Okay? But then suddenly the conditions change and the ground's not as solid. And suddenly the trees of the forest start to fall. That is what is going on inside you right now. Okay? I know it's hard to think of things that way, but that is what it is. And when we own something, okay, or someone, that's based on conditions that are going to change. Now, the people that we own probably don't think that we own them or don't have any idea that that's what's going on in our minds, but we're saying that every day to ourselves. It's my wife, my kids, my car, my house, my everything. What you say matters. And so that is why everything is empty. Because the conditions are empty. This conditional universe, as it is built on emptiness. And that is why it is constantly changing. And so what we have to do, or what we can do, is try and understand what is. And how we do that is by accepting that life is not what we want, it is what it is. Okay? Simple as that. But we have a hard time doing that because we are built on these conditions. I've talked about conditioning before and how you've been conditioned since you were a child. That is all true. And that conditioning is still existing in the conditions that you live under. Are you sad or angry or irritated or any other type of feeling that you're having? That's based on a condition of emptiness. Okay? The wind is moving the tree. Anyway, so how we get out of being sad, okay, is by accepting the emptiness that is everything. I know it's hard to think of it like that, but that is the way it is. And these conditions that we live on and live with are only like a wheat field, okay? And you can move through the wheat field and you can touch the wheat, but every time you touch it, every second is a different piece of wheat. It's never one thing. It's always something different, okay? And that is what reality is. And it's empty. So, in order to awaken, we have to recognize that fact, or be doomed to live under the conditions that were set up by everyone else. And that's why you're unhappy, because you're living under conditions that you didn't create. Your parents did, or the state, or the educational system, or whatever you want to call it. Okay? In order to awaken, we have to realize and recognize that this emptiness is there. It exists. I know it doesn't look like it, but it is there nonetheless. And it is part of everything. And I know that's a hard thing to sort of understand, but unless we can understand that, unless we can understand the emptiness of everything, then we're going to be trapped in the fullness of nothing. Okay? I know that sounds weird, but that's what it is. Being trapped in the conditions, okay? Which is what a lot of people are, okay? And we are so enamored of those conditions, so enamored of everything, of buying things, of having the right purse, the right shoes, the right hat, the right shirt. It has to have the right label. And if it doesn't have that label, then we're not happy. Okay? And depending on how much money we have, that could be, whatever. But if we allow this to be who we are, it is because we have made it that way. That is why you are responsible for your life. What happens is we get a feeling, and that feeling makes us want, because we're pushing it down. We're trying to subsume it. Okay? And that making it go away doesn't work. It's going to keep coming. And as long as we are busy trying to push away and pull towards us, then we can't really understand or appreciate the beauty of life. So, in your life, you must have felt this. The emptiness. The job. No matter what you're doing, it has to feel empty, doesn't it? I know I've felt that. many times. Okay? You're going to work 9 to 5. You're doing a thing. And at the end of the day, what does it matter? Yes, you made some money. You traded money for time. Okay? But it makes no difference what exactly you're doing. And that should make a difference, one would think. One would want to have that make a difference in your life. Which is why it's empty. And the conditions upon which it exists are empty too. And nothing can stand unless there is something else beneath it. And that includes everything. Okay? Now they say empty space isn't really empty. That there's such a thing as some kind of fog. Can't think of it. Quantum fog. With particles bouncing in and out all the time. Okay? But that in itself is empty. And so is everything that sits on top of it. And unless that quantum fog is the basis of everything, which they say it is, okay? It's the basis of this material world, of space, of the universe. Right? That's what they say. The scientists say that. Okay? And that is what is underlying everything. If you go down to the smallest level, eventually that's what you hit, the quantum fog. Okay? So then it's empty. The whole thing is empty. And as long as we are clinging to emptiness without knowing it, then we are in suffering. Okay? I know that's hard to think that's what you're doing, okay? But that is what you're doing, okay? Because even if you are on the spiritual path, you're still clinging to something, okay? And that is what you have to let go of in order to proceed. And that means first you have to accept that it's empty. Meaningless. Is it something physical? A precious object, perhaps? Or maybe it's an idea in your head that you cannot let go of. Or maybe it's that you were raped and now you feel like that's your whole life. Why do you think that is? It's because you froze that moment of time and carried it forward. Because the condition of that rape is now your life. Isn't it? Yes, of course that's what it is. Okay? I would never want anyone to be raped or anything like that. It's a terrible thing. But it does happen. And if you freeze that moment of time and you carry it forward through your life, then your life is about that. Is that what you want it to be about? No. You want your life to mean something, don't you? As long as you are caught in the trap of fullness, okay, which you are, probably, okay, then you cannot escape the meaninglessness of everything and the emptiness. So, you have to accept that what you're holding on to isn't real, doesn't exist. It may exist in reality, in the present moment, whatever you can call it, but it doesn't exist in your mind. This is all about what's in here. And if you're holding on to something in here, like a car, I know it's crazy to think that that's what we do, but we do that. So, everything that is in your mind is part of what you're holding on to, part of what you're clinging to. And that keeps you from realizing that it's not you. And when we own things, okay, when we take ownership of something, okay, that ownership is based on the condition, or conditions, okay? And when the conditions change, then it falls. You marry somebody. You meet somebody. You fall in love. You marry them. Okay? And you say, that's my wife. Or my husband. Okay? And then time goes by and something changes, and suddenly that's not the man I married. Right? Of course it is. That's exactly how it goes. And anything based on these conditions, which are going to change, is going to fall. That's the way it is. By awakening, you're free of the conditions. It doesn't define you anymore. And that is where you want to be. Okay? Now, I know it's hard to accept things. And it's hard to accept something that you don't even know if it's real. Because me talking and saying this stuff isn't necessarily going to make you think it's real. Okay? It's just not. But what it is going to do is hopefully make you think about what you're holding on to. And what conditions are you holding it under? Okay? And when those conditions change, then you are going to change. And you're going to grab for something else because this will no longer satisfy. Right? Okay? Whether that's a new drug that you've never tried before, or whatever it is. A new gambling app. Okay? Or whatever. It's still clinging of the mind, which leads to suffering. So, try and realize, try and recognize that you are not a person. Recognize that you are not this body. Recognize that you are a soul, which is part of God, part of the cosmic conscious collective. Everything that's alive is part of the cosmic conscious collective, or the source. And so, we come out of the source, and then we go back into it. It's an endless dance. Now, I know people have talked about reincarnation and said different things about it, and I don't know if I believe in reincarnation or not, but I do know that the world is a strange place. So who knows, right? But if that is so, then it makes no difference at all. Because it's still about what you have to do, which is your karma. Okay? And what you need to do with your life in order to make it good and everything else. Okay? And so what we're trying to do at this point in time is to evolve our consciousness by realizing that it doesn't come out of this. Okay? It comes out of this. Anyway, so try to realize or accept the conditions that are holding up your self. Now, that self is what's stopping you from realizing that you are part of God. Okay? And it is held up by conditions that were set forth by your parents and everyone else. Okay? And realize that those conditions are empty. Okay? Like a field of wheat. They're constantly changing as you walk through it. And you need to accept that. And you need to accept that those are not you. Just like the senses are not you. The seeing, the smelling, the tasting, the hearing, the touching, they're not you. As long as you believe that that is what you are, okay, then you will be trapped into fullness. When what you really need to do is become empty. Because only by becoming empty can you become nothing and realize that you are everything. Only someone who has realized his nothingness can be everything. As long as you're trying to be something or become something, then you cannot recognize that you are nothing and everything. So, try and accept what you can. Everything is a process, a journey, okay? But everything that you can accept is going to lead to your freedom. And every time you do accept something, it gives you more freedom to be what you are, instead of something that is tugged by the wind. The winds of change. Instead of being free, you are bound. And that binding is the suffering. I don't want anyone to suffer, but that's what life is about, really. It's fighting against the isness that causes the suffering. And a lot of other things as well. But we don't have to do that. We can instead embrace what is. And that means accepting that getting something doesn't matter. I know it seems like it matters, okay? Absolutely, I understand that it seems like it matters. But it doesn't. This material world of which we are so enamored, okay? And so love, okay? I mean, people will spend amazing amounts of money on things that they wouldn't on other people. Okay? That's just the way it is. And you know that just by walking down the street and seeing a homeless person. Anyway. So remember that the ownership that you have of things is a trap. And buying more things is just adding to that trap. making it harder to escape from. I know having new clothes is nice, or having a new car, a new house, a new this and that and the other. Okay? I get you. But it's meaningless if you're trapped in that. Okay? If you're trapped in the shopping, okay, then whatever you buy isn't going to make you happy. There's only one thing that will make you happy, and that is freedom. And understanding that you are part of God, that you aren't alone, never were alone, because God was always with you as your soul. Not really your soul, but the soul that you are. And once you do realize that, once you do recognize that, then that brings with it a lot of releasing of suffering. Okay? Which is what we want to have happen. And these conditions that you are standing on are going to change. So that's just what is. And if you can accept that, then you're going to be okay. But as long as you fight against the change, which everybody does, then you are going to fall between the cracks. Be trapped. That is what is. That's the nature of life. So try to accept what is, and try to remember that you are not what you think you are. As wonderful and beautiful as you are a soul. And that soul is more than anything else in this world. Trying to become something like a star, which is wonderful. I'm not saying it's not. It's not more wonderful than being a soul. Because that is your identity. Your spiritual identity. And that is what you truly are. And as long as you think that you are this person who had this experience, which made this impact, which made this person do this, and so on and so forth throughout your life, then you are going to be in suffering on the wheel of karma. So, my purpose here is to try and get you off that wheel so that you can have a good life, and so that you can see the beautiful nature of everything, because it is beautiful. Okay? As I said before, there is beauty and there is ugliness, and it's part of the same thing. And you cannot have the beauty without the ugliness. It doesn't exist as separate things. It's all one. And we must accept that it's all one. And we must embrace that it's perfect. Because it is part of the isness of being. And that isness of being is everything. Okay? We think that everything else is important because that's just how we've been raised to think. But it's not. It's meaningless. The material world is meaningless. Success in the material world is meaningless too. And that is something you must accept. Or be in suffering. I've tried to describe to you how it is meaningless, what it is set up to be by the conditions, which are constantly changing, so there is no meaning to be found there. No meaning. Everything is moving, and that includes everything else. And when we freeze one thing, like a feeling or an event, and carry it through the rest of our lives as something that affects us, even though we could have left it behind, then we are in a trap, which is possible to get out of by accepting that it wasn't you, that you are a soul that cannot be hurt, a soul that cannot be injured, a soul that cannot be killed, a soul that is immortal and limitless. Well, the clock on the wall is telling me it's time to go. I enjoyed talking to you. I would love questions. If you don't understand anything I've said, please question me on it. And, or just comment on what I'm saying. Anything that comes in is something I want to hear, and I will make a video about it. And if you can, share. All right, well, have a great day and a great life.